gosh, thoughts just kicked me out. Hold on.
So, Ben, I have down to introduce you as host of Marketplace Tech and the podcast Codebreaker. Should I amend that in any way?
No, just say you could add some jerk if you want, but no, other than that,
I don't think so.
Perfect.
Granted, I've only spent 20 minutes with you so far, but you seem very opposite of a jerk to me.
So far, so good. So far, so good. Yeah.
We're both behaving ourselves. All right.
Yeah, that totally works.
Good. All right. And Scott, I have down to introduce you as my co-host on this show. Is that?
I think that sounds good. No one the Wednesday usual. Wednesday man, you can call me.
Roger, you have control. Is everything good?
Yes.
All right.
Sure.
Well, there's no rule that says we can't get started a little early if you guys are ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Let's rock.
Sure,
whenever you want.
Do it.
Keep Ben as long as we can.
All right. Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, December 14th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me as he does Wednesdays, Mr. Scott Johnson is in the house. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm good. Wednesday is here. That means don't fear. I'm trying to rhyme everything because it's Christmas time. Isn't that how it's supposed to go?
Is that what you do in your traditions? It becomes rhyming time for you?
I try to rhyme it. Later we'll have limericks. Tomorrow, prose of some sort. This is how I celebrate. But by the way, merry early Christmas and holidays, everybody. It's super awesome to be here on these last few episodes before the end of the year.
Well, the gift for us today is we're very happy to be joined by Ben Johnson, host of Marketplace Tech and the podcast Codebreaker. Ben, welcome into Scott's Traditions of Rhyming.
Thank you very much. I was going to start to sing "Rhyming Time is Here" and just go from there. But no, thank you very much for having me. It's nice to, yeah.
Fantastic. We're going to talk to you a little bit about Codebreaker later on and some of the things you do there. I love the idea that it is both informative show, and game if you want it to be. It's just really genius.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, there's that added layer of being able to binge the show Netflix style if you want to. It comes out every week, but then there's a secret code hidden in every episode that you have to decipher and unlock to get the next episode. And the message in the code is never eat your or drink your Ovaltine. So don't worry about that. It's not marketing.
You can strike that one right off the list.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk a little more about that in a bit. But first, let's get to some top stories. The Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas announced it's going to put an Amazon Echo in all 4,748 hotel rooms by this summer. The Echo will only control lights, temperature, drapery, and TV, though. So you can't order a bunch of things on Amazon to your room and have them charged the hotel.
Kind of a bummer. I was hoping it would be. I mean, can I say play me some Frank Sinatra or something? Will it do that?
It won't do the music either yet. They say they're going to expand what it can do eventually, but it's mostly just to control the room.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need to keep control over that thing too, and you don't want people messing around with it too much.
But it listens too, right?
It always does, right?
Yeah.
So the Las Vegas hotel filled with speakers that listen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Amazon.
I would like to make sure that my Amazon app can see what it has recorded, which you can do in the Amazon Alexa app. Just something for the Wynn to consider there.
Yeah.
Here are some more top stories. Starting Wednesday, anyone in San Francisco who requests UberX could find themselves in a self-driving Volvo XC90. Uber has a more limited trial in Pittsburgh where you have to opt in, but otherwise it works the same. 2 Uber employees will be on board. Riders can choose to decline the autonomous ride if they wish and go with a human-driven car. Uber also does not have a permit to test autonomous cars in California, but says it doesn't need one because of the human driver on board, the way they interpret the regulations. The California DMV urges Uber to obtain a permit.
I like the idea of we've talked about this before. I like the transition of this. I like that they're saying, here's a stepping stone toward full autonomy of cars. And we realize we cannot just go and make that giant leap without making some steps in between. I think that it's a kind of a weird conversation about whether they need a permit or not. It sounds to me like They probably do need one, and I don't know why it's a problem not to get one. Maybe it's more complicated than I was thinking, but pretty interesting. And Volvos are tough. Do you think they went with a Volvo because I don't know, they're known for taking a lot of damage before anyone gets hurt, sort of thing?
That's got to be right.
Yeah.
Safety considerations are part of this, and partnerships, business deals are part of it.
Yeah.
By the way, I just thought of something. Tom, sorry, I have to throw this out there. I cannot let it sit in my brain any longer, or else I'll forget it. The Amazon Echo thing in hotel rooms. They need a new slogan for Vegas. Whatever happens in Vegas stays on Amazon S3 servers.
Same as on Amazon Web Services.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
AWS, gotta love it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Ben, what do you think of the expansion of self-driving cars? I mean, it's becoming a thing you can do in multiple places: Singapore, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, etc.
It's so fascinating because like a year and a half ago, we were all saying this is 20 years out, right? We were all saying that. We were all talking about, okay, Google's got something it's testing, whatever. And now it really feels like it's happening right now. I actually talked to Bill Peduto recently, the mayor of Pittsburgh, and it was really interesting to hear his perspective because, he really wants to draw jobs to Pittsburgh, and he feels like this is part of that, even though self-driving cars are eventually going to get rid of a lot of jobs, right, by taking the actual driver out of the car. So it'll be interesting to see how municipalities work with this. How very Travis Kalanick and Uber is this story, though? Like, well, we've decided that we don't need a permit, and that's how we look.
We'll
at
ask
this
for
situation.
forgiveness and fight it out later. We're just going to.
But it is interesting.
Yeah.
Super
Well, and it does shine the light on the fact that these are not level 5 autonomous cars. They're not just out there driving around on their own. And the articles I read, people did have to intervene, sometimes just for efficiency's sake, other times because the car just didn't feel like it had the proper step forward. So they're still being tested. They're not quite ready to just be unleashed on their own.
And those steps are good. Those small steps are good, just like you said, Scott. I think those steps are good.
I'm really a big believer in that, but also it's almost like it's how he can pad this a little bit, because I mean, if you're asking me flat out, why do I think Uber got such great prominence and success so quickly? It is because those guys, including their founders and CEO, are so unafraid and unabashed about their idea, and they took it from weird idea to something people rely on every day in what feels like no time flat. So how do you pad that kind of aggressiveness? You have these little small steps, and you make it look like they've thought this stuff through, and they probably have. I don't want to say that they're not, that's not genuine, but make it feel and be a transitional idea, and keep that positive spin on it. And I think you'll get there. I think it's the only way to do it.
Totally.
Amazon launched a private UAV. That's an unmanned aerial vehicle trial on December 7th in the UK. They delivered an Amazon Fire TV and a bag of popcorn, like you do. 2 shoppers are so far approved to order goods to be delivered by quadcopter, as long as it's good weather and during the daylight. Those are 2 important parts of this. There are plans to eventually expand to all shoppers who live near the Prime Air Fulfillment Center in Cambridge, of course, in the UK. The first trial took 13 minutes. From order to delivery, Amazon's goal is to keep the process less than 30 minutes. What I really want to know more about are the 2 customers who have access to this and why they're the ones.
They're Amazon employees, aren't they? They've got it.
Probably.
Yeah,
they must be.
But this, again, kind of like the story we were just talking about. Here's something that a couple of Thanksgivings ago, everyone was maybe mocking a little because it was a bit of a press event to pretend like you could do this. And now 2 years later, Amazon is in fact delivering things. They're not the first. There's been things delivered in Rwanda and Australia, but they are in the game and actually delivering things by drone.
Ben, are you surprised that it's? I mean, I have asked other people this too, because it seems like this was something that was knocking on our door a couple of years ago, like Tom said. I feel like this has taken a long time, and the fact that it's just 2 approved people, they're really taking their time with this. Does it feel like it's going a little slow?
Well, it's really interesting to think about the requirements, right? And not only the requirements here in the U.S. that the the government has put out, the suggestions the government has put out, and the fact that Amazon is thinking about places like the UK and Canada because of this, but also it has to be during the daylight. I want to see the landing strip of these things. I want to see how big it is. It does seem a little bit surprising that it's taken them this long because drones have been a thing for a little while. I mean, the first people using this stuff were camera nerds, right? People who were like interested in taking video with drones. And now it's finally happening, I don't know, 5 years after people have been, well, I guess maybe longer than that. That people have been building these UAVs. So it has taken a little while, but it's still like the whole idea that Amazon, I'm skeptical, I will say, of the whole idea that Amazon, that I'm going to like be getting my winter hat delivered via Amazon drone here in New York City. Although I do live in the top apartment in my building, so my rooftop is free. But I was in Queens the other day, and someone was like racing a drone down the street, just like flying it around, and it was terrifying and amazing, and it felt like we were living in the future. So I don't know. I guess I'm a little surprised that it's taken this long, but it's definitely here. So
yeah, I remember those first quadcopters at CES. I don't know, 2009, 2010. Something like that. And I have a history of dismissing things like instant messaging and camera phones that I think are dumb. And I was like, that'll never turn into anything. It's a gimmick. Turns out wrong again.
That whole internet thing is a fad.
Yeah. The graphical web. Nobody wants graphics on the web. The Florida Court of Appeals Second District has ruled that police can compel a man to provide his passcode to an iPhone 5 that they have a warrant to search. Courts in Virginia, Michigan, and California have previously ruled that compelling the revelation of a passcode violated protections against self-incrimination. Those courts reasoned that something like a safe combination, or in this case, a passcode, should be treated differently than something you have, like a key or a fingerprint. The Florida court wrote, "We are not inclined to believe that the Fifth Amendment should provide greater protection to individuals who passcode protect their iPhones with letter and number combinations than individuals who use their fingerprint." So they sort of backtracked and said, well, if you can compel someone to unlock it because of a fingerprint, then you ipso facto should definitely compel them to give you the passcode. But this looks like something that's headed for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I just from a pure wow, hadn't thought of this before. This is only a problem in our modern era kind of problem. I love that kind of law stuff. And I like when courts are arguing back and forth about things like this, because it really gets into the minutia of how we're doing things now versus the way we used to. The big difference here is, though, I can't change my fingerprint. I mean, I could burn it off, I guess, but that would then look like malicious, changing of my fingerprint. If somebody asked me for my passcode and tried to compel me to do it, and I made one up and they couldn't get in, and I said, well, that's how I remember it. That to me is just a very interesting wrinkle in an otherwise kind of sensible argument.
An interesting wrinkle. I like it. Yeah, it's really it's really interesting. It's like this whole debate, since the Apple and the San Bernardino shooter conversation that happened earlier this year, this debate has really blown up in terms of being able to unlock a phone, or having the government be able to either have a backdoor or compel someone to unlock their phone. And the what you are or what you have versus what you know debate has really sort of bubbled up in the last year. And it's been interesting to talk to people about this on our show. And we actually, Codebreaker has a whole episode about encryption, where we have a story that's about this very debate between what you know and what you are, and whether the government can kind of say, well, you have to give us your fingerprint. And the more and more people talk about using biometrics as a way to unlock things, the more and more this is going to come into the debate. And there are some security researchers who think that biometrics aren't the future, because for lots of reasons, but it's, I don't know, maybe it will go to the Supreme Court. It'll be really fascinating to see this play out.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to think about that Florida court reasoning, which a lot of people, I think, would try to make that reasoning in the other direction, saying, well, I shouldn't be compelled to give my fingerprint because I wouldn't be compelled to give my passcode. And they just turned that same logic, said, look, these things should be equivalent. I think we all kind of agree on that. What that means for compelling your cooperation with a search warrant, I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yep.
Not at all. Not at all.
Incoming U.S. President Donald J. Trump has added Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Uber CEO Travis Kalanick, we just talked about him, to his strategic and policy forum, which will meet to advise the president on business issues. Disney's CEO Bob Iger and IBM CEO Ginny Rometty, also previously named to the 19-person board. I have a question about this.
Just finished before we started the show, was the meeting of many tech CEOs, including Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk, et cetera. So the incoming administration trying to get the advice of Silicon Valley here.
Yeah, I'm curious about precedents. I was going to look some of this up and didn't have time this afternoon, but is this a thing that happens every with a new incoming president? There's some sort of summit like this?
The summit, President Obama didn't have it on his way in, I don't think. I think he had it later after he had taken the office. But having these kinds of councils to provide advice on various industries is pretty common.
Interesting.
And President Obama started talking to the private sector as soon as the website for the Affordable Care Act turned into a hot mess. But it's been really interesting to see this, because I think this is a good sign, right? You've got a lot of these people that he's tapping specifically for this, not the stuff that's happening in New York today with Peter Thiel, but the folks that have been named, including Elon Musk, to this group that is going to advise him. I think, look, Elon Musk wants to make a clean energy revolution in the U.S., and I think to me that seems like a good level of balance when you're talking about appointing the head of ExxonMobil to one of the top positions in the country too. I think that's a good thing. A lot of the tech folks in Silicon Valley have a lot of good ideas, and that feeding into the presidency isn't necessarily a bad thing, right?
Yeah. I also wonder, do you think they made everybody go around on that table when they first started and everyone had to say something nice about somebody else's product?
Tell us one thing about yourself that you've never said to anyone else.
Yeah, tell us. Tell us your name and what you do. Well,
I'd like to think that. Teaching surgeon Dr. Shafi Ahmed live posted a routine hernia repair using Snapchat spectacles at the London Independent Hospital. About 200 medical students and trainees watched on Snapchat as it happened. It was an educational tool. An assistant pressed record on the spectacles, so the doctor's hands were free to conduct the surgery, but they had prearranged which points he would hit them at, because you can't just stream live. You have to keep pressing record. And then another colleague posted the clips to Snapchat as they came from the glasses. They've compiled everything into a video that's posted on YouTube. That went up on Sunday. And this sounds familiar, Dr. Ahmed has also recorded surgery with a 360-degree camera and while wearing Google Glass before.
I was going to say, this is crazy deja vu, right? We're living in the Matrix. It's amazing to see this story
before. Yeah.
Oh, this has happened before. But Snapchat is so much better at marketing what they have than Google was with Google Glass, right? I mean, everybody's waiting for hours in line to get these spectacles. That wasn't really happening with Google Glass. So this is interesting to see.
I think what they did, and the smart thing that they did, is they said, all right, this idea of being sharing our lives in this way and having this social mechanism with both video and photos, it's already what we're doing with our phones. It makes sense to integrate this in other ways. And in a lot of ways, Google Glass was right on the money, except it was just so much money to try to get involved in it. Of course, that was early beta tester stuff. But what they said is, no, let's just aim a little lower. There's no reason this can't be affordable and function and work for what we wanted to do. And I feel like they just hit their target. And
totally.
It's crazy what those guys have pulled off.
Yeah, Go ahead. Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say it's amazing to think about how this stuff can be used too. I mean, we were visiting a medical training facility the other day here in New York, and we were talking to somebody who's helping people do these sort of retraining courses for medical professionals, or CME as I think they call it. And there's a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality being introduced to this stuff. People are playing with apps to remember how to, I don't know, like go into a nasal cavity with instruments and things like that. So I think it's really interesting to see, doctors like this start to play with this stuff. I think it
arguably Google Glass is much better at what Dr. Ahmed wants to do than spectacles, because spectacles have to have a guy keep pressing your face every so often. But there's no arguing that Google Glass is strictly a niche project for enterprise right now. I think everybody's forgotten it even exists unless you're using it somewhere on a factory floor or something like that. And it's anyone's guess whether it will even survive in that way. Whereas spectacles has the hearts and minds of the world at the moment because they're cool. The other thing that is a little interesting here to me is that these are shades. So he had to make sure he could do this surgery while looking through sunglasses, which he decided he could and did successfully. But they are also working on clear versions of this for situations like that.
Do you think that the operatee, the patient, had to be aware of this and sign off on it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to say, who among us is willing to have surgery while someone's wearing some snap shades and
So
also
about
touching the
hernia.
snap shades?
Tell you what. Well, especially in the UK, because, my temptation is like, we'll give you a break on the price if you let us use the spectacles. But you got national health there. It shouldn't matter either way.
Be okay.
Oh, man.
I don't know. Your gut's on full display. It's an interesting idea for sure.
Yeah.
Twitter, in our final story, now will let you use any of their apps for iOS or Android to start a Periscope live stream. I saw this update right before the show. I haven't actually tried it out yet, but there is now a live button that has been added to the Compose window. When you tap this, it launches the stream from within the Twitter app without taking the user to Periscope. The Periscope app and website will remain and continue to work independently. So this, to me, reminds me of Boomerang on Instagram. That used to be an app outside of things, and then they sucked it in. And this reminds me of what they could have probably done with Vine had they decided not to shut it down. And because they're doing this now with Periscope, I think I may have figured something out. I think they may have shuttered Vine because they knew they were going to do this, and this makes more sense as a tool that would find more popularity as live streaming grows in popularity than they ever would have with 6-second Vine videos directly through Twitter. Could be wrong, just a theory.
That makes sense to me. I mean, it's also like, I swear, all these stories about adding functions to these, social platforms and social networks, social apps is all like, the more that they happen, the more confused I get. I'm like, wait, are we talking about Facebook Live? What are we talking about? They all do the same thing now, right? To a certain degree. Yeah. I mean, this is a small example, but it's like when all of these apps are just the more things, I don't know, the more and more, the further we go through time, the more all of these apps just all do the same thing, and they're trying to, be the same as the other apps that they're competing with. And I wonder how far that can go. Yeah.
And you had Meerkat at first, and that kind of went away. Periscope kind of ate their lunch, which is also a Twitter-owned company. But then you've got Facebook Live, like you mentioned. There's a lot of rumor and talk that Instagram is adding live streaming to their service.
Oh, no, it's there. Yeah.
Is it there now?
Yeah, they announced it.
There.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely seeing a proliferation of this feature. And what we're seeing is just a format war. It's where do you want to do it? It's like using YouTube or Twitch for your game streams. You got to make a choice and who you're going to go with. And I kind of wish there was just like a standard and we could just plug it in everywhere.
Yeah. Totally.
Like you could just go from your camera app on whatever phone you use, whatever format, and say, I want to choose this service to stream my stuff out to.
We'd really like that.
Yeah.
The massive app is coming, I hope.
The Uber app.
Yeah.
Well, not the Uber app. That just gets you a ride.
But the Uber app.
Yeah. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. All right, so as we mentioned, Codebreaker has a puzzle embedded in it, but Codebreaker describes its mission as deciphering our complicated feelings about technology by asking straightforward questions with a sense of humor, a sense of awe, and sometimes a sense of dread. I experience all of those on a daily basis, so I 100% understand. Starting off, what kind of feelings are you deciphering on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When we're in the second season now, we ask one fundamental question about technology every season, and the first season the question was, "Is it evil?" And the second season the question is, "Can it save us?" So, I think we all, as we use technology more and more, everything from surveillance to talking about grinders and people experimenting with cyborgism, to people using virtual reality more and more. We have complicated feelings about whether or not these things are going to be good for ourselves and our lives and our communities and our world. And so those are the sort of complicated feelings we're trying to figure out. And we really enjoy it. I like to describe the show as basically radio journalism inspired by the Twilight Zone. So, the first season of the show was inspired also by Mr. Robot and Black Mirror and some of these things, some of these shows that kind of have a little bit of an edge to them, but are really story focused. And it is radio journalism, but it's we have a lot of fun with it and find some we think really interesting stories about individuals and how they use technology. Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was gonna ask if it has any of these questions when you first asked them. Let's say like the question, "Will it save us?" Is technology great savior of the humankind? At some point, will it be the reason we make it through whatever trials we have ahead of us?
Yeah.
Have you been surprised by the answers? Like, have some of the answers come back as you've worked through the season? And as you've sort of evaluated it for yourself and come up with those answers and heard from your listeners in that way, have some of those answers come back to you and hit you right in the face and said, whoa, I hadn't thought of that, or this went in a direction we didn't expect?
All right. I'm going to make a big admission to you guys.
All right.
This is a conceit, right? Really, really, we all know, because we all talk about technology every day, that technology is a tool, right? What really matters in terms of whether it has properties of salvation or damnation really depends on the humans who use it, right? And their motivations. So I have been surprised by some, in the episode that's actually out this week, we talk a lot about climate change and technology that's built to help us, move into a future of clean energy. We talked to Bill Nye, the science guy. He's the guy we sort of wrap up the entire episode with. And he, here's a guy who he absolutely believes in many ways that technology can save us. And he's really focused on using renewable energy and having, he uses the example of his grandfather. He said, my grandfather rode a horse into World War I. And 20 years later, nobody was doing that. So he believes that we can all, if we make a decision together to really commit to cleaner forms of energy, that we can do that. So, yeah, sometimes I've been surprised by how people feel. We talked to another guy. We have an episode called The Augmented Self, which is all about everything from cyborgism and attaching things to your bodies and chipping yourself to, we talked to a guy named Chris Dancy, who's one of the most quantified self people in the world. He wears like 10 fitness trackers. He takes an ambient recording of sound every 18 seconds or something like that in his, as he goes throughout his day. He's like super crazy with this stuff, with this data stuff. And I asked him, but there was a time in his life that he was really unhealthy, that he was really overweight. He was drinking too much. He was doing drugs. And he feels like starting to track his own data has saved him physically. But he said that morally it bankrupted him. And kind of made him into a crazy person. So I have been surprised. It's really interesting to hear people talk about how this stuff impacts their lives for good and for bad.
I think it's important because the thing that causes fear a lot of times is uncertainty. And if you aren't an expert in software or hardware or follow technology all the time, you will wonder how all of this stuff works and why these hacks happen and what do I need to be concerned with, and that causes a lot of fear. So I think talking them out like this is extremely helpful. Do you think the right people who need to hear about this get the message?
This is a very good question. I mean, we have a lot of listeners, and they run the spectrum from people who actually build the software and the hardware. We talked to one of the folks at GitHub the other day, this website where you can upload all sorts of code and share code with other people and talk about workflow and things like that. And they were huge fans of the show. But then, there are other people who are listening to the show who are not tech experts by any stretch of the imagination. And some of them are skeptical and afraid of some of the technology that's sort of moving further and further into their lives. And so we really try to be, try to make something for everyone. You don't have to be a tech expert to listen to this stuff. You just have to be a person who who is interested in technology and cares about humanity, I guess, is at least our hope, that everyone who listens to the show, unless there are some robots that want to take over who are listening to the show. I don't know.
There probably are.
Happening. Yeah,
Well, it seems like more and more, and a lot of the podcasts I listen to, I seem to be drawn to this sort of stuff. And it just seems like more and more conversations around technology are starting to be, and I don't mean hyperbole things like, oh, when's the AI going to be smarter than us and kill us all, and all those sorts of stereotypes about technology improving and AI improving, but people just thinking about their everyday lives, like, do we know what the impact of constant texting, Snapchatting, Instagramming, and everything else is having on, say, teenagers? Does that change the way their brains are being wired? Like real scientific questions about actual developmental changes in people, in their biology, brought on by the kind of technology they use. And it does feel like you're right there for this trend. Does it feel like that conversation will only continue to increase in intensity, or do you see that leveling off at some point and we just get comfortable again in our tech?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think we've been talking about technology's impact on our lives since, when we started working on this episode about cyborgism. Some people point to an Edgar Allan Poe story as the beginning of the idea of cyborgism. I mean, this is 200 years ago. So, or 150 years ago. And so, I think the conversation seems to me to have been pretty consistent over time, depending on how you define it, about how technology is impacting our world and impacts us as humans. But it's really interesting to think about how much more people are used to technology being part of their lives. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had this experience. Like even someone who's like 10 years younger than me, I watch the way that they interact with the same technology that I interact with. And I'm always like terrified because they're so much faster and better at it than me, right? Like you look at like a 10-year-old kid and they're using a phone in ways that I will never, like what they're going to be doing by the time they're my age is crazy. So I think it's something that people are getting more and more used to, this stuff getting folded into their daily lives. So hopefully the conversation will continue, but maybe there will be more of a familiarity with some of the stuff that we're just starting to understand and get a sense of now.
Sure.
Yeah, would you spend your whole life being the guy who is impatient with everyone else for not getting it, and suddenly you're the guy who's not getting
Right.
it, and they're being impatient with you? It's a big flip.
Yeah.
Totally. And
It's
go ahead.
It's definitely true with my kids. I'll watch, I have a 16-year-old, and I'll watch him on his phone using an app like Instagram. And when I use Instagram, I kind of slowly scroll. I'm like, oh, that's a funny comment, or I like this photo, or what did Tom post, or whatever. And I might double tap it if I like it, but I just kind of have this leisurely stroll through Instagram when I check it. And he's going zip, 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 double tap, zip, zip, double tap.
Yeah.
Zip, zip. He's got this efficiency thing happening that I think is, I don't know if it's good. I don't know what it is. It's just a very different approach. And he's just getting he's sending out a lot more likes, and he's getting a lot more imagery than I do in my session of doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And it's, in the first season of our show, we talked to somebody who, they're an informatics professor. So they study, human interaction with computers, and they look at randomly reinforced behavior, which is, constantly checking your email or checking your Twitter or checking your Facebook. And they talk about how hard it is to train yourself to not do that and to have a deeper connection in your, in whatever you're doing, to take an hour and actually, I mean, it's hard for me to watch an hour-long TV show now without picking up my phone and looking on Twitter. And so
my wife watches TV with the phone in her hand almost all the time.
Yeah. So this is really fascinating, and it's happening really fast. I mean, we were talking about Uber. We're talking about self-driving cars and drone delivery taking a short period of time, but it was 7 years ago, the iPhone, right? No, 9 years ago, the iPhone.
9 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and think of all the changes that have happened since then in the way that we behave and interact. And it's really interesting to see it happen.
Yeah. When it's been as long since the iPhone came out now as it was when the iPhone came out, as it had been since 1998.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
.com boom on the rise at that point. Anyway,
Wow.
little perspective.
Ancient history now.
Yeah.
Ancient history now.
All right, let's get to a couple emails. Pick of the day today came from Brett Stewart, who said, I wanted to throw something your way. I've been very hesitant about adding new social networks to my life, apropos to our conversation here. I like to keep it simple. I only succumbed to Twitter last year, but I made an exception for Drive Tribe. It's a social network from the folks at the Grand Tour, the former Top Gear hosts. It's a social network entirely made up of groups or tribes that you can join. They have specific focuses. It's a bit like a Facebook group. In fact, you log in with Facebook. There's groups for car modification, photography, articles, and so on. I've actually found myself really enjoying Drive Tribe. Its community is very small and niche right now, which fosters a lot of discussion and quality content. And I rarely see anything I scroll past, unlike other social networks. There's not a lot of content there right now, but it's slowly growing. And what is there is good content curated to an extent. It may be a good pick for anyone with a passing interest in cars, engineering, or even photography. And it's certainly a nice reprieve from the inundation of other massive social networks. Plus, Clarkson, Hammond, and May regularly contribute and join in on the conversations.
That's interesting. It's interesting because you're using Facebook to log into that thing. Facebook has groups, and this being an alternative to that must mean that groups isn't doing it for some people. Certainly not for this group. So why the heck not? Take it out of Facebook. Get out of that walled garden, son.
Yeah, they're just using it as the login.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, Facebook, I need to figure out which of the massive tech octopi is going to take over the world. And I'm wondering whether it's Facebook or Amazon, for totally different reasons. But
right.
It's interesting that the Facebook groups aren't working, but you still log in via Facebook, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting situation. It's one of the few cross-platform things Facebook does is allow you to log in because they just want to get that data any way they can. And so, I mean, good for Facebook for not saying, well, you can't use it to log into a competing social network because you wouldn't have something.
That's true.
Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. And I just want to read this one message of the day from Pat Murphy from beautiful Columbus, but born and raised in lovely Cleveland, he wanted to point out. The other day, you mentioned a listener that had to withdraw their Patreon support because they were in a tight financial situation. Let that person know I just increased my pledge in their honor so they can listen anyway and have no bad feelings. I thought that was really nice. Well done, Pat.
Well done.
The best. And that is it for this episode of Daily Tech News Show. Big thanks to you, Ben Johnson, for joining us. Not only tell people where they can go to pick up Marketplace Tech and Codebreaker, but also a little more about the puzzle involved.
Oh, man. Am I giving away hints? Should I give away hints? Okay.
I mean, if you want to give away hints, we're not going to stop you.
Well, so you can go to the website codebreaker.codes, and that's where you can listen to the show and also input the secret codes if you can decipher them. And like I said before, there's a episode that comes out every week. You can get it on iTunes. You can get it on, if you're an Android, you can get it wherever you might get your podcasts via Android. And if you listen carefully to each episode, it has a secret code in it. They are really hard this year. I made some of them up last year. And they were they were pretty easy. It wasn't like drink your Ovaltine easy, but it was pretty easy. This year they are really hard. They have multiple layers, and if you like solving puzzles, you just have to really listen closely. And I was
going to say, you don't stop and go, now time for the secret code. You have to pay attention.
No. Yeah, you really have to pay attention to the whole episode. We've got let's see. I can give one hint. We have an episode that's all about virtual reality. It's the second episode of this season, so it's out already. And I'll give one hint that if you are listening on headphones, and you know how to write down binary code, that will help. So
okay,
there you go.
Yeah, you actually just fired up a bunch of people in our audience. I know. They're like, well, I know binary code. I'll take this one.
It's a lot of fun, and we've had actually thousands of people do this, and it's fun to watch people sort of move through the season and binge the season by listening for all of the codes. So it's a lot of fun. I hope you'll listen.
Codebreaker.codes for the code breaking part of it. Where's the best other place to go follow what you're doing?
You can find, I'm on Twitter at the Brock Johnson. You can engage with me there. And marketplace.org, marketplacetech.org is where you can hear our daily show. And like I said, anywhere you're going to listen to a podcast via app, you just search Codebreaker and we're there and you can hear us.
Thanks again, Ben, for joining us. This was great.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a lot of fun.
And I was outnumbered by Johnsons today, but Scott, always good to have you along as well. Anything to tell folks about before we're out of here?
Well, there's the Great Johnson Uprising, but other than that, I would just keep your. So I've been trying to ramp up my content on twitch.tv, both in gaming and creative content. And as a result, one of the cool things that just happened today is I was able to get a name change on my account, so it's much easier to find now. If you go to twitch.tv/frogpants, you will find it as of like literally
awesome.
half an hour ago. So go check that out. There'll be a new schedule posted soon with all sorts of plans. Very excited about it. And for everything else, follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson.
Thanks to all our patrons who support the show on patreon.com/DTNS, including Nick O and Daryl Mukai, or Mukay. Either way, Daryl, I'm very appreciative. And big thanks to all the people who raised their pledge. A bunch of folks raising their pledge yesterday, including Lucas Yant, Aditya Vyas, and Wade Menard. Every single one who supports the show, we thank you so much. Go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support for more. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show was part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nice.
Perfect.
Frog
Good show, you
Pants.
guys. Yeah, that's Scott's network.
It's awesome.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, how I haven't listened to Codebreaker before is pissing me off because it's totally up my alley.
Oh yeah, please listen. We got I failed to mention that one LeVar Burton is also on the show, Jordy LaForge. So we've got some fun geeky nerdy guests on the show, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it sounds a little bit dark, but we're optimists, so we like to sort of tackle this stuff with a sense of hope as well. So
Yeah, no, I think you do a great job with it, and I highly encourage everyone to go check it out.
I am officially subscribed. So
all right.
Fantastic. Well, Ben, we know you got stuff to get going to, so thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really, really appreciate it. Hope we can do it again, and take care.
Yeah, please do. And if you ever have a particular episode coming up that you think would be of interest to plug, let us know, and likewise, we'll hit you up again for sure.
Scott, well, both of you got to come play Silicon Tally with me.
Oh yeah,
One of
definitely.
these days.
Would love to. Thank you. Yeah, would love to.
count on it. I absolutely would love to. So just let us
All
know.
right. Marketplace Tech, come on with us. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, cheers.
And Roger, thanks a lot, man. Take care,
Thank
y'all.
you.
All right.
All right.
We got titles, Roger?
Yes, we have titles. All right. What happens in Vegas stays on AWS?
I like that one.
Snap surgery.
I like that one.
2 Johnsons, no waiting.
That one's pretty funny.
What happens in Vegas stays in Amazon. Concede
say
the
it, yeah.
fifth finger. Is it evil? Yes. Necessary evil is the mother invention. 2 Johnsons and the Tom. 2 Johnsons with merit. Echo Chamber Las Vegas. Viva Las Amazonas. Trump Musk work. Get it? Trump Musk.
Oh, because of the Elon Musk thing. Yeah, and Jobs. Got it. All right.
Doctor makes a spectacle out of routine surgery. Oh, surgery.
Hold on a second. I'm going to take this. You keep going.
Breaking the code. It's written in Leet. You'll shoot your eye out. Uber says we don't need no stinking humans. Leading the pack is what happens in Vegas stays on AWS.
Yeah. Oh, that one's got the hot vote getter right now.
I mean, I'm kind of willing to just let the votes call it today. You guys have a particular favorite?
Not really.
I can't. I mean, I like the number one, but I also quoted it, so I don't want to be that guy. So it doesn't have to be mine.
Oh, you can be that guy.
Well, I think it's
We're
funny.
making you that guy, John. Scott. I was about to call you Johnson because they're Johnson.
I'm done. Get in here, Johnson.
It's funny that I hadn't even thought of that until he said that. Until he went, oh yeah, those things listen.
You can turn the mic off, but you have to think to do that and go turn it off.
Can I do
They
it
also
there,
don't.
though?
They also don't store. Yeah, no, on the actual device, you can go over to the device and press mute. They also don't store things for a long time, but as I said on the show, the way they do it is usually you go into your app and you see like these are the ones that they still have stored. They expire after a certain amount of time, and you can see everything you've said to it. Only after you've said the trigger word, though.
Right. Only after Alexa's been triggered.
Oh,
What if you actually? What if you're like philandering with a woman with that same name or something?
Well, then, yeah, I was wondering about that. Actually, I wasn't wondering about that. I was wondering about you're on a family vacation with your daughter who has that name. But okay, you can go whatever direction with this. There's someone in the room
It's
with that name.
Vegas.
The way you normally do it is you change the trigger word to be Echo instead of the name. But I don't know if you could get in there to the settings to do that. So anybody whose name is Alexa staying at the Wynn is not going to want to have a conversation with people say her name.
What if I use a particular Vegas escort service and the girl I always ask for, her name is Echo?
See, then you're fine unless you can switch it to Echo. Then you just switch it back.
Can I just unplug it from the wall?
Yeah, you could do that too.
Isn't that really what you want to do in the end?
I don't know. I like saying, close the drapes. It's kind of cool.
I like
Right
the
on the line.
philandering term, Roger. I'm glad that you pulled that one out. I like philandering as a word.
Philandering. That's
Isn't
what
that
you
people who
do.
collect stamps?
Which what?
That's not people who collect stamps.
That's a philanderist.
A
Fatalist. Fatalist.
Fatalist. Yeah.
Fatalist.
No, a philatelist is someone who believes that everything is doomed.
Oh, I thought a fillet. What's a filetist? Is that someone who believes all fish should be filleted or filleted?
Yes, I am a filletist. I believe I'm filleting everything.
Don't give me that meat.
Fatality. Crap, I can't
Philately?
pronounce it.
Stamp collector. There.
Yeah, PA. Yeah, stamp collector. Stupid
go.
Latin names. They didn't even have commemorative stamps during the Roman period. What would they know? What Latin phrase could you use? None.
Did they have any kind of stamps in the Roman times? Was that a thing? That's a good question.
They did.
Stamped their own coins, didn't they?
Right. I have some Roman coins.
I have some Caesar's Palace tokens.
I was very excited about getting Roman coins until I got them. And then I'm like, I mean, there's history to them, right? But they're kind of small.
The man that died once
Not really
handled
impressive.
these coins. But you
Yeah.
can say that about any currency.
Our currency was bigger than theirs. Roman currency is really tiny.
It's because people didn't have pockets in their tunics. So if you had to carry these, you didn't want a lot of them.
Yeah, you needed
Or
to
to
put
put
them in your bag of holding. Right?
Yeah, they had an early version of the, well, you can't say fanny pack back then, I'm sure. A satchel, man purse,
Page.
Merce.
a merce, or basically a diminutive courier bag.
Nice.
All right, I am exporting now. What are we going to call it?
What happens in Vegas stays on AWS is at the top.
Done.
There it is then.
Sorry.
And what's the over under on someone writing in and saying, well, actually, the Amazon Echo data isn't stored on AWS?
Well, probably high, but you'll be missing the joke.
What's the over under on it being Tinvek, who actually created the Daily Tech headlines skill for the Amazon Echo?
It could
Because
be.
he actually knows where it goes.
Never bet against diamond clubbers.
Never bet against a diamond. Never tell a diamond clubber the odds.
There you go. You know what I'm hearing? My favorite thing I've been hearing about the Star Wars reviews? People love Andy Tudyk's, what's the name of the robot? CY something?
Oh, the C3PO.
K2SO.
Yeah, like raves about that character. So that makes me very happy. I'm dying.
I'm getting excited. I was already excited. I'm getting even more excited.
I said this last year, earlier this year. I said I'm more excited for Rogue One than I was for The Force Awakens.
I thought you were nuts.
And I'm not nuts, am I?
Well, not about that.
I'm not nuts. I'm nuts about cashews.
You are a dad.
Actually, the best one I like, believe it or not, like those Cadbury chocolate bars with the raisins and the nuts. Those I love.
Kakaya says, doesn't make it any less funny.
Nope.
Agreed.
Hey, I will knock off, but come back online at the appropriate time.
Tomorrow?
No, for the thing later today.
That's tomorrow.
Is it?
Yeah. The DTNS monthly?
Yeah, I thought that was today.
No, it's Thursday.
Oh.
You're on the calendar invite.
Yeah, I thought it said today.
No,
Yeah.
December 15th.
Oh, I thought, okay.
Yeah, that's all right. You can go, though. I'm going to knock off, too.
I gotta find
Thanks,
out.
everybody, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.